changes which have taken place here. India and Germany have a long history of close and warm relations. We are marking the 70th year of the establishment of our diplomatic relationship last year. And our strategic partnership, which is more than 2 decades old, has really been bolstered by greater political exchanges, ever-expanding trade, more investment, and a stronger people-to-people relationship. 2022 has been a year of particular note for us. We've held the 6th India-Germany intergovernmental consultations in Berlin in May, and this was the first since the current government in Germany, led by Chancellor Scholz, came to power. And this unique mechanism of the IGC, it's really ensured a whole of the government interaction with multiple ministers on both sides meeting their counterparts. And it was notable that we saw the launch of the India-Germany partnership on green and sustainable development, and I think in our conversations today, actually SDGs and climate issues, even though that's not my direct jurisdiction, these were also part of our discussions. Now, the IGC gave me an opportunity to spend time with Minister Baerbock in Berlin at that time, and I really thank you again for the warmth of your hospitality then and for the time that you set aside for us to discuss things. Now, today we have really spent the morning exchanging views on the major international issues of the day, apart from our bilateral relationship. And this included the conflict in Ukraine, the Indo-Pacific strategic situation, developments pertaining to Afghanistan and Pakistan to some degree, Iran, Syria. And really each one of us brought to this set of issues our perspectives, and I think, at least I can say this, I found it very useful, very rewarding to listen to your perspectives on many matters. We also briefly touched upon the multilateral issues. You all know that India and Germany interact in the framework of the G4 when it comes to the reform of the UN Security Council. We had a discussion on India's G20 presidency, which comes just as Germany itself is concluding a very successful G7 presidency. And I know that we have Germany's strong support as we take up our responsibility in the G20. Among the issues we discussed was also cooperation in third countries, in other regions. I think today our relationship has matured to a point where our cooperation should be visible more and more to the rest of the world. So that was something we discussed. How can we make this happen more effectively? We already have some projects in Cameroon, in Ghana, in Malawi, and Peru. But the idea was really how can we be doing very much more. I also welcome Germany's decision to participate in the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative that we had announced in 2019. Where our economic ties are concerned, you all know that India, Germany is our largest partner in the EU. I think we both recognize that the business climate today, the business enthusiasm today is very much stronger. And we certainly, as foreign ministers, would like to channelize that and use it as a positive source of energy for the relationship. We are today supporting the India-EU negotiations on trade, investment, and geographical indicators. We hope that they will progress well. The third round of negotiations on the FTA has just concluded. But I think on a broader scale, I think both of us spent time talking about how to create more reliable and resilient supply chains. In the digital world, how to encourage more trust and transparency. I think we have a common interest, India and Germany, in ensuring not just a stronger global economy, but also a more secure global economy. So as you can see, on this range of issues, really it's been a very productive morning. There was some talk between us on people-to-people relationships. We have just signed the Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement, and I do think that this will be a very strong signal for a greater, not just a greater flow of talent and skills between our two societies, but I think also as a basis for a more contemporary partnership. One issue which also came up were the visa challenges, and we hope that some of these are addressed in the coming months so that the backlog can be cleared, and I have every confidence that there will be that effort made by our partner. A specific issue which came up, some of you may be familiar with this case. This relates to a child called Ariha Shah. So we have concerns that the child should be in her linguistic, religious, cultural and social environment. This is her right. And our embassy is pursuing the matter with German authorities, but it was also a subject which I had brought up with the minister. Overall, I would say our bilateral relationship today is very wide, it's very deep, and it really covers, all the key areas: political, strategic, economic, S&T, people-to-people, education. But it can grow very much. And I think we, the two foreign ministers, I think are particularly committed to make that happen. Our meeting today, our discussions were helpful in that regard. Once again, really, Minister, I thank you so much for being here and for partnering me in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite Her Excellency Minister Baerbock to make her remarks.
Thank you very much, and I will speak in German. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, lieber Subramaniam, Jaishankar, Ji, vielen Dank für den herzlichen Empfang heute hier in New Delhi. Ich habe meinen Besuch in Indien.
I started my visit to India today, as many have done before me, at the Memorial Gandhi Smriti. And I've always been deeply moved by India's rich history, but when I followed Gandhi's last steps today, I became acutely aware of the fact that India's path towards independence truly was not an easy one. Today, almost 75 years after the murder of Gandhi, there is a close bond between our democracies, a bond that unites us on the basis of shared values: human rights, freedom, democracy, trust in an order based on the law. Thank you very much for the open exchange we had today about all these topics, and this open exchange is possible also because, of course, this is my first official visit to India, but it truly doesn't feel like a first official visit. It rather feels like coming to see a good friend. And the fact that we have met several times already this year at the intergovernmental consultations, as you mentioned, in Berlin, the G20 meeting in Bali, or the UNGA in New York, shows how important the close coordination between friends is to us, especially in this year. The challenging situation the world finds itself in today makes this more than necessary, and it also illustrates that in these difficult times, it is important that we stand together as partners in values, that we really can grow together, and that we are doing so. My visit today could not be more timely. This month, as you said, India's G20 presidency and your presidency in the UN Security Council overlap with our G7 presidency. So you're also having the presidency of the United Nations Security Council. So, Minister Jaishankar, I would like to explicitly thank you for assuming the presidency of the G20, not only in a business as usual way, but you also made it very clear in our discussion that this is a very special task and that you will shape with great responsibility. So India is assuming global responsibility in this difficult moment. Responsibility for the most urgent tasks of our time. We have the global impact of the brutal war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine, an illegal war that has brought the whole world into a very difficult situation, and it also creates difficulties for your country when it comes to energy supply and fertilizers. We see the climate crisis that has impacts worldwide, in India, in Europe, destroying livelihoods of people. So I am especially delighted that India, during its G20 presidency, with the motto "One Earth, One Family, One Future," is putting a special focus on containing the climate crisis, thus highlighting our common responsibility when it comes to climate change. As industrialized nations, the G20 are not only responsible for 80% of global emissions, they are also responsible for a major part of climate-induced damage, also climate-induced damage that is still to come. So we are taking concrete steps in this regard as well. Germany and India will further expand their cooperation for accelerating the energy transition. In the framework of the climate conference, we have made available 10 billion euros up to 2030, and last year, for the first projects in 2023, we have agreed on projects worth 1 billion euros. Concrete projects intended to support India in covering its big energy demand by switching to socially and ecologically sustainable energy sources. By doing so, we are building on the negotiations we had at the COP, and we show that we stand ready as a partner for India, a partner for more climate protection and renewable energy sources. In addition to the climate crisis as the biggest security threat of our time, we have also, of course, spoken about regional challenges. With the adoption of the Indo-Pacific guidelines, Germany has clearly committed to strengthening the rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific area on the basis of the UN Charter. With the visit of the frigate Bayern in Mumbai at the beginning of the year, we have also shown in this regard that we underpin these guidelines with concrete actions. In the future, we want to further intensify German-Indian cooperation in the field of security policy. So Germany wants to engage in the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative initiated by Prime Minister Modi. We are also putting a focus on the areas of climate and energy, and we will in particular support the Pacific states in their adaptation to climate change. And also when it comes to the bond between our people, that is so important, we are taking concrete steps today. With the Migration and Mobility Partnership that we have just signed, we are facilitating exchange between our countries. We are supporting, with the Migration and Mobility Partnership, we are supporting the life plans of skilled workers, students, and
So Indo-German Mobility Pact inked. In the meanwhile, let's quickly shift our focus back